was before. During the Bush years, when President Bush was president, we saw tax policies that enabled the greatest extraction of wealth from the middle class up to the high end. Sucking up money from the middle class to the high end. Greatest policies in that regard. Until now. Until now. Yesterday you saw on the floor a proposal that for 1 year would give a tax cut of $160,000 to people making over $1 million a year. That would be on average. And at the same time, that same bill for 1 year would, on average, increase taxes on the middle class by around $1,000. $160,000 tax cut for the high end, $1,000 tax increase for the middle class. That was yesterday. Today, they're doubling down. By putting out their principles for tax policy, they are now doubling down. In their proposal, millionaires will pay less. $331,000 tax break for people making over $1 million at the cost to the middle class of paying more of $4,500. How many people in our country do you think are aware of this blueprint for, again, extracting money from the middle class and giving it to the wealthy in our country? You have to give the Republicans credit. They're very clear about their agenda. When they talk about tax cuts for the rich, they talk about rewarding success. What they don't talk about is the tax increase for the middle class, which is devastating to our country. The middle class is the backbone of our democracy. Tax cuts for the middle class are spent. They inject demand into the economy. They create jobs. Assuming the expiration of the Bush tax cuts, not even to mention these that they're plotting, assuming the expiration of the Bush tax cuts reduces the deficit, injects more certainty into the economy, and certainly into the lives of America's great middle class. So this is a very, very important day because, to their credit, the Republicans are going out there and telling the American people, hoping they're not listening, what they intend to do. In Washington, D.C., the subject of tax policy is the be-all, end-all of the special interest. They see their fulfillment in tax breaks. It's really quite sad when you see that they would rather give $38 billion in tax breaks to big oil and cut that much money from Pell Grants. They're very open about those kinds of different priorities. But this focus right now is on their principles of how you go forward. $330,000 for people making over $1 million, and that happens every year. Every year. The Romney tax plan is not that much different. They all reflect the Ryan budget, which says tax breaks for the wealthiest, make the middle class pay more, seniors pay more for Medicare as we break the Medicare guarantee, students pay more as we give tax breaks to the high end. So if you ever want to know what is the central focus of the special interest in Washington, D.C., you need only look at the proposals of the Republican Party for the high end and the special interest. Any questions?
You said that the reform of the tax code, that all of this should be nonpartisan,
Yes,
bipartisan. But both sides, over the years as this has been debated, really started a position where they think the other is their entire viewpoint is completely wrong. The trickle down on the Republican side, any sort of tax cut or any sort of tax increase being unacceptable. How do you take the politics out of it?
Well, I think it has been done. Again, experience shows us that it has been done. President George Herbert Walker Bush, during his campaign, he said, "Read my lips, no new taxes." That was his view of the economic situation at the time, that would be okay. When he became president and saw what the how things had perhaps changed, let's say it that way, and you can read his own book and see what he said about agreeing at Andrews Air Force Base to a compromise. So we all come in. I mean, I don't believe in trickle down. They don't believe in percolate up. I have an experience in the Clinton administration. When we passed on the floor in 1993 our economic package, which required an increase in taxes at the higher end. It was very unpopular because nobody wants tax increases, but it was very necessary to address the budget. What resulted in that was, working with the private sector, over 20 million jobs were created. What also happened there was, in at least the last 4 Clinton budgets, there was no deficit. They were either in surplus or just even.